Hey Friendo, Steve here. So last week I picked up a bunch of the sketch cover copies of The Walking Dead number 150 and Deadpool number 1. Picked them up online. I figured it'd be kind of fun to show you guys like some speed art of me doing the sketch covers, and I'll put them in my shop over at etsy.com/shop/MF Steve here. I've also got my graphic novel video available to buy right now. You get a free sketch with every copy that you buy. And I'll put these sketch covers up on the Etsy store as well, so you can go check those out. There's a plug for you. And I figured while we watch this sketch cover thing that I'm doing here that I did earlier, I would talk to you guys about how I got into comic books, or how I tried to get into comic books, and I kind of failed miserably. And it all had to do with this guy right here video. So basically back in 1989, the first Batman movie came out. I'm not going to talk about everything since then, but basically that movie made me want to get into comic books. I was a huge Batman fan when that movie came out, and I started getting comic books and collecting them, and I started drawing at that time also. And so all throughout school, I was big into art. Like I'd be drawing, and all through high school, there was a part of me that kind of wanted to get into comic books. Once I got into high school, I started wanting to be more of a filmmaker. Like I was looking more at going to film school for college as opposed to like art school. I had met some like really good friends, and they were into film, and I was huge into film also. So I was like, okay, well that's the path I'm going to go ahead and take. Fast forward to after college, and I started giving a lot more thought about doing comic books again. For a variety of reasons, but also mainly because my artwork I thought was getting to a place where I could realistically maybe give it a shot. But I also really wanted to do it on my own. Like I wasn't necessarily huge into drawing things like Batman and Superman. I wanted to do my own thing. So I went to San Diego Comic-Con in 2003 and was just really inspired by like the small press area and the artist alley area, and I was like, man, I really kind of want to do this myself. Like the thing that I really loved about comics is that you didn't need like a big budget like you do with like movies. Like your budget is basically whatever you can draw. And so around that time, I think actually before then, I really started percolating. Like I had a couple different ideas of stuff that I wanted to do, but none of them really like gelled into an actual comic book until around late 2003. I had looked up like what conventions were coming up because I decided to set like a firm deadline for myself. And I saw that in San Francisco, the Alternative Press Expo was coming up. And I was like, oh, that's cool. It's like for indie comics. It's sort of what I want to get into, self-publishing. So I'm going to go check that out. I'm going to go I'm going to get myself a booth, and I'm going to sell my comic. I don't even know what it is. So I called them up. I was like, hey, I want to get a table. They're like, well, we have a half table available. I was like, okay, well, give me that half table and I'll come out. So then I got started working on my comic book, and within like a month I had one finished, and it was the very first issue. It was the single issue of this, because this originally was a mini series, and I decided, you know what, I'm going to do a mini series. I don't know how I'm going to pay for it necessarily, but I'm going to go ahead and just toss it out there, see what happens. So I did the very first issue of video. I took it to San Francisco for the Alternative Press Expo. And I sold probably, I think if I remember, around 50 copies. And I was like, that's really good. Like 50 people came by. Because I was like way in the back. Like our table was like way in the back. We were sharing with some guy who had brought his kid. And I remember vividly, every time this guy would get up to go and like try to find other comics or talk to people, his kid would just be sitting there on his Game Boy Advance. And people would come up to the table and be like, hey, tell me about this comic. And the kid would just sort of shrug him away. So this guy was like losing business because he wanted to go look, and his kid was useless. So anyways, I went with my friend Big Jim. I've talked about him on the show before. And the comic did well. We got approached by a distributor, by Diamond Comics, like a guy from Diamond Comics Distribution, which if you guys know the comic book industry, that is the only distribution game in town. And he said, hey, this looks pretty good. We can distribute it. We can get this in comic book stores. I was like, all right, cool. So he said, you probably just want to change a couple things. Like, oh shit, I got to get them reprinted now. Well, okay, whatever. So I went back to press and I got 1,000 printed up. Or rather, no, I submitted the comic, and I got back an invoice for 775 copies of the first issue of video. I was like, okay, well, considering I'm a nobody, I got like no name. It's a really weird concept. It's like a post-apocalyptic Jesus comes back thing. And it's called Video, which is weird. And like I said, I'm a nobody. I thought 775 was a pretty good number. Like I was like, oh, that was pretty good for my first time out. And so I went ahead and had 1,000 published, and I sent them out to Diamond, and it was kind of exciting. And then I got the orders for the second issue, and they were half of that. They were probably around 400. And I was like, shit. I'm like, this is how it goes? Like, what the hell? But the thing is, like, they didn't have time to react because the first issue hadn't come out yet by the time they had to order their second issue. The comic book industry is really fucked up like that. There's like the ordering process, like trying to advertise to people. Like if you have a new comic book coming out, you have to go to your fan base and be like, hey, you need to go pre-order this comic and then get it in 3 months. And it's a really weird thing, and you have to have this number right here. And even if you go, like a lot of the comic book stores in the country still won't even order it. So you have to hope that they're going to order it. And so basically your customer is kind of like the actual comic book store itself. You have to sell to them and say, hey, you know, you can push this to your customers. But then they want you to push it to the fans. So it's a whole fucked up thing. But anyways, it's actually, I mean, the bottom line is, it's actually remarkably easy to get into the comic book market. It's just, you know, like anything else, there's a lot of work that goes into it. So anyways, I got the orders for the second issue, and I was like, okay, well, you know, I'm gonna keep on pressing ahead. And at this point, I was holding down a day job, and I was doing the comic at the same time, and I had to stick to a monthly schedule because I had committed to doing it. And then I got the orders for the third one, and they went down a little bit, and the orders for the fourth one came in, and those ticked up a little bit because they had seen the reaction from the first issue already, which was pretty decent. Like, people were actually pretty into it. And so I got the orders in for the fourth issue, and they sort of ticked up. But by that time, I was like basically running out of money because I had pumped so much money into printing the damn thing, and there wasn't a huge return that I was seeing back. And on top of that, like, I was just getting burnt out on drawing a monthly comic. It's not easy. It's actually really, really hard. And so at that point, I was like, you know what? I know the orders ticked up a little bit, but what was originally going to be a 6-issue series, I was like, fuck it, I'm going to make it a 5-issue series. I'll make the 5th issue bigger. I think at that point, like the 5th issue, I had to cancel like the 5th issue in the first place because I wasn't going to make it in time. And at that point, that like loses retailer confidence. And so when the next batch or the next order of the issue 5 came to me, it was like even lower than the first one. So anyways, I was just burnt out. I was like, hot. So all the video came out, and of course, instead of stopping and being like, okay, well, what's my next move? I was just like, you know what, fucking, I'm gonna dive back into this. And so I started up my next comic, and I'll tell you guys about that one in the next episode. I'm gonna draw a Deadpool cover. Here's the Walking Dead one. Fuck, it's over there. Anyways, you can get this comic, you can get this sketch cover. It's at my Etsy store. You can buy it right now. It's there, it's available, you can get it. Nobody's bought it yet. Be the first one. Or the only one, because it's it's the only one that's there. It's artwork. It's my sketch cover for Walking Dead. You like zombies? I got zombies for you.